The Joyce Ann Gaines story, More Than a Riot, is a full-length documentary about the 1965 Watts riots in Los Angeles and how an obscure barber named Joyce Ann Gaines became the catalyst for the event. The role Joyce played in the riots, as well as her name, were mentioned frequently in newspapers and other publications from the time, including Life magazine, the Los Angeles Times, and Burn Baby Burn. But until now, no one has ever had the chance to interview Joyce about the riots, about her role as the instigating spark that set it off, or about the life she lived before and after.
I wanted my life to be more than a riot. (1965). A year of contrast in America. We had war and peace, love and hate, civil rights and civil unrest. Our American economic policy, as well as our judicial system, were both full of dichotomies. While the future of the Black American vote was being considered in the halls of Congress, the community of Watts, California was a tinderbox ready to explode. Rampant unemployment, lack of opportunities, social and economic oppression lit the match of indignation. On August 11, 1965, a scuffle between a black motorist and a Los Angeles police officer led to the unfair treatment of a young black female barber.
Rioting in the Negro section of Los Angeles left behind scenes reminiscent of war-torn cities. Left behind scenes reminiscent of war-torn cities. War-torn cities. War-torn cities.
I am Judson MacLaury. I'm historical advisor to this documentary about the 1965 Watts riots and Joyce Ann Gaines' role in the inception of this important event. In 2006, I retired from my position as historian for the U.S. Department of Labor, where one of my principal topics of research was the history of the African American workforce. My book, To Advance Their Opportunities, published in 2008, deals with the federal government's treatment of its black workers up until the Civil Rights Act of 1964. It matters profoundly which narrative is accepted. We will argue that the Gaines story is the true version, and we will explain how it should shape our understanding of the Watts riots.
I'm Arlando Smith. I'm an assistant professor of educational leadership at San Jose State University. The basic tenets of the San Jose State University Educational Leadership Department are equity and social justice. There were several insurrections in the urban cities. And post that, there's been a lot of discussion, a lot of talk about the progress or the lack of progress of black people and Latinos in the United States. The black middle class has grown significantly. No one can really dispute that the black middle class has grown. So there's been some progress as a result of the programs that were put into place post-1968. But underneath the surface of the growth of the black middle class, there's been this gap between the black middle class and the urban poor. Let's call them the urban poor. So because the schools are deteriorating and the social programs went away in the Reagan administration, the more African Americans have gone to prison, unable to get jobs. Middle class blacks and whites have moved out to the suburbs, leaving the center cities pretty well decimated. And as a consequence, you have these parallel tracks, and the conditions that were there that led up to the Watts riot and 128 other insurrections during that time are also prime now. There's this, under the surface, there are the seeds that you see it beginning to manifest itself with people being dispossessed, feeling disenfranchised. Anger and hopelessness is starting to come to the surface again. People don't know where to turn. The safety nets have been pulled out. And so it's very interesting how we have denied brutality. Bill Bradley, who was a senator from New Jersey, I remember a quote from him saying that a cell phone in the hands of a white person is a cell phone, and a cell phone in the hands of a black person can be construed by the police as a weapon. Those types of judgments that the police and other people in power are required to make instantaneously oftentimes lead to insurrections.
Because, see, the barbershop is where everything is. It's the networking system. I don't care where you go. Daddy had the wisdom to teach us the things that we learned to live as human beings and being fair with people. And by us having a platform in the barbershop, we were able to share that with certain people that probably would never get that conversation.
The riot was just an outburst. There were things that took place prior to that shaped me and put me in my mindset in a different kind of way as far as race relations were concerned and how I felt about white people and black folks and what was going on at that time. When I was growing up in Compton, there was 2 movie theaters. One was strictly black and the other one was basically white. And part of being tough and growing up in Compton was to be able to go to the white show. They had all the latest movies. But when we get there, we'd have to be out of there by 5 o'clock. We'd have to fight our way out of there because Compton was still in transition as far as one side was white and there was a boundary, which is Santa Fe Street, where you couldn't be caught after a certain time over there was going to be on. Yeah, there was a movie called The Tower Show, and they had all the latest movies, like Jerry Lewis movies, and we wanted to see Jerry Lewis too. So some days we'd take a chance and go anyway. About 4 or 5 of us be the only black folks in there. Movie over, they'd run us home, call us a bunch of niggers, and we'd end up fighting our way home. And this is when I was like 11, 12 years old. They had a group called the Spook Hunters, where they, if they caught you across Santa Fe Street, they'd chase you down, and they shot at us one night.
So there seem to be 2 different public narratives of how the spark was struck on that fateful August night. One of them, let's call it the Fry narrative, tells of the Fry family's arrest for disorderly behavior after a traffic stop, and how the gathered crowd immediately turned into a rioting mob. In the other narrative, it was the subsequent arrest of Joyce Ann Gaines that turned the mood of the crowd ugly. This is the Gaines narrative. But why was she arrested? And why would that affect the crowd so powerfully? The police claim that she spat at an officer. She denies spitting at anyone. In either case, her arrest didn't make any sense. But for that very reason, the crowd's anger makes a great deal of sense. Gaines's arrest was a perceived injustice, and the impact was exaggerated by the mistaken impression that, because she was wearing a loose barber's smock, a pregnant black woman was being arrested and manhandled.
From the Watts riot till now, right? We have that riot take off, and people imagine they've never seen anything like that before. But then in my lifetime, we've had the Rodney King uprisings right there in the same community, right there in Los Angeles, right in southeast Los Angeles, right there. And then you bring it forward to Oakland and what happened here with the shooting of Oscar Grant, an unarmed African-American a man who was gunned down, shot in the back by an officer here in the city of Oakland, to just this summer in London, riots off the hook, and people saying, well, we can't understand it. Well, if you look at all of the issues and all the conditions surrounding it, you have low-income communities that are pushed to the margins. You have people of color who the police in this way that's no other communities would accept. We have this policing by any means necessary, or by, we have this sort of gloves off, any sort of policing is okay policing, do what you got to do. And what we have is a community who rebels against that. When you see your children, when you see elders mistreated and abused, eventually you stand up. And that's what this is about, is people eventually standing up and saying no more.
Well, I'm granted this opportunity to share with you my nephew, Oscar Grant, who I love dearly. I guess the best reflection that I could share with you about Oscar was the day before he was murdered. That day before was his mother, Wanda Johnson's birthday. Oscar, his fiancée, Safina, and his daughter, Tatiana, who was 4 at that time, celebrated her birthday with her at his grandmother's house, my mother's house. He brought there to her some crabs because she wanted gumbo, and they just enjoyed each other and loved on each other. And she had said, Oscar had mentioned to her mom, I'm going to San Francisco to celebrate New Year's Eve. And she said, Oscar, if you go to San Francisco, please catch BART. It'll be the safest way for you to get to the city.
And so, yes, the seeds are there. What I would suggest is that in this country, we have become better at messaging what would happen if you go out there. So it creates a lot of fear in people that if I go out and really take this social justice, if I start marching, if I start demonstrating, if I start rebelling, I'm going to lose something. And what happens when you lose it? I've had people in my class say, well, I really believe in this, but I can't lose my job because I have to pay my mortgage, right? And so I'm not willing to put anything on the line. No, I really believe in this. Well, in order for me to sit here and be talking to you, somebody had to put something on the line, right? There were people marching, there were water hoses and dogs. I would not be here had that not happened. And so we need a new generation of people to step up and say, they got us to this level. Now I'm standing on their shoulders, therefore I have to take this to the next level, right? And that so far is what's missing.
To really end this, what we actually need is a full upliftment of community. When you have, everybody wants to live in a safe community. But what we know is the safest communities are not the ones with the most police. They're not the ones that are most heavily patrolled. They're not the ones with the most people returning home from parole or the highest incarceration rates. They're the communities with the cleanest air, the cleanest drinking water, the highest employment rates, the highest number of people going on to college. Those are the safest communities. So if we want to make our communities safe, what we have to do is give people jobs, give people good, clean air to breathe. You need to give people educational opportunities. That's how you improve community.
Well, in my 21 years of broadcast, I've seen a huge dichotomy between how you're treated from one area to another. Whether you're black or white, rich or poor, there is a difference.
We spend millions of dollars a year policing and patrolling and incarcerating in our communities and in low-income communities. And we spend pennies on the dollar in terms of education and opportunity, job training, job placement, food, things that we actually know make a difference in our communities. And those are solutions. We have to invest in love and what works and stop watering hate and disharmony and disunity and crime and fear, which doesn't work, which doesn't actually turn anything around. It doesn't actually help anything.
I wanted my life to be more than a riot or the lady who started the Watts riot. I never really discussed that. So I shaped my life in a way that I can assist and help other people so that people won't be that angry where you want to burn your own property, your own stores, everything. That was so much anger that it created a fire. I think the fire came out of the inside of the people. The flames were just an expression of that anger, how people have been treated. I felt mistreated. And I never really sit down and discuss that with people because I didn't really know how.
Produced by Cool World Media.